Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and this week joining us from Germany, I believe, right Simon? Is Simon Flossmann. Hi Simon, welcome.
Welcome Vasco, thanks for having me.
So you are in Germany, right?
Yes.
Very good, very good. So Simon helps teams effectively use Scrum and an agile mindset to deliver products and services that matter. As a Scrum Master and professional Scrum trainer licensed by Scrum.org, he supports teams and organizations of varying sizes in a wide range of business domains like automotive, home appliance, energy sector, federal government agencies, and insurance. Simon, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Thanks, Vasco. As a lot of us, I started my career as a software developer. I worked for a company creating embedded software for the automotive industry. And our team was building mainly tools and automation to build these embedded software components. And on the first day of my job, I remember my team leader came to my desk and said, "Simon, we are doing Scrum," and handed me out a book I should read. And in case I have any questions, I should ask him. I think that's the way I got in touch with Scrum. Now,
that was quite a jump into the deep end, I'm sure.
Yes. Now I try to answer your question a little bit more specific. So how I became a Scrum Master. In hindsight, I would say that the starting point of my Scrum Master career was a few weeks later. So our team, additionally to developing new functionalities, was responsible for first and second level support. And at that time, we had a lot of bugs in our application and we had to fix a lot of bugs. And one day a colleague of mine approached me, I think it was at the cafeteria or somewhere, and said to me, "Every time you got assigned a bug, nothing happens. In the sense, no changes to the code base are made. But instead of what you else are doing is you're talking to each and everyone how this error could occur and how we should change the process in the future that it will not occur again." And he appreciated it, but he said, maybe you're a little bit better suited for a different role in our organization. And he offered me to help me to run with him the daily Scrum. And from that on, I think that was my starting point in becoming a Scrum Master. And from that on, I used every opportunity to introduce at the beginning more agile practices like test-driven development, pair programming, and swarming. And later on, I tried to kickstart Scrum teams as often as possible. And eventually, a few years later, I got offered my first official Scrum Master position.
So you were basically practicing without the title.
Yes, exactly.
Now, I didn't start necessarily exactly the same way. I used to be a project manager, but I do know what it is to get started by reading a book and then jumping into the deep end, because that's, of course, how I got started. Now, what usually happens is that when we get started, we are learning a lot, and sometimes things don't go as we expected. Unfortunately, or fortunately perhaps, this happens all throughout our career, because the career of a Scrum Master is definitely filled with learning opportunities, the ups and the downs that we go through as we learn. So Simon, share with us one of those down moments, one thing that you did that didn't really work out as you expected. And of course, that led to an insight and a learning moment. But walk us through the story first so that we may understand the context and what were the problems that were coming up and what you did. And then, of course, what you learned from it. Tell us that story.
Okay. Let me start by saying what the context was. So I worked for a company as a Scrum Master and I worked with one team. I think I was actually hired to work with more teams across the whole organization, I suppose. But I resisted and purely focused on the success of one team. And I think the team did a really good job and were very successful. A few key points I would like to mention is I think we released a new version of the product like every sprint, and we also hit the sprint goals constantly. And we improved a lot. We had a track record of implementing improvements throughout the year. A lot of these improvements were around test automations and how we are working together. And after a few months, we managed to find a customer for this new product and also launched the product. To me, it was a perfectly success story. But one day I got called to my manager's office and I was told to leave the company.
Uh-oh.
This struck me really hard. In hindsight, I found out that the company maybe is not doing so well. And in times of a crisis, the company chose to let people go which are not working on delivering value in their understanding, I would say. And so what I learned from that failure, as a Scrum Master and a servant leader, you always need to find ways to communicate your successes and also connect your achievements from your team and the service you are providing to your team to the higher goals of the company. And so how should you do this in a tangible way? And first and foremost, it's very important to connect the goals of your team to the goals or the mission of the company. And I think it's very helpful to communicate your successes by writing on a company blog. Or what I tried oftentimes is to make, let's say, a pizza party where you invite the people from your company to have a look at your product and your team. Also invite them to join the sprint review to see how your team is working. And what I also did throughout this learning is to invite managers to get a Gemba walk in the team room and really see what you are doing. So what's your value? And of course, the most important thing is you always need to talk to the managers, how you are serving the team, and you also need to talk to your team if you're serving them well. And I think the most important point is do this consistently. It does not help if you do it only once. It has to be on a regular basis. By the way, I do not believe that the greatest success of a Scrum Master is to be not needed anymore.
We'll definitely talk about that on Thursday because I also have some strong opinions on that. But I was just struck by one of the things that you said as you started, right? We did a great job. I still got fired. And that's one of the things that I think very often we forget as Scrum Masters, that we are not there to help teams be better teams. We are there to help teams become better and to help businesses thrive or at least survive, right? And for me, it's quite surprising every time I have to have this conversation with the Scrum Master that is focused on, improving the collaboration within the team, solving the conflicts, but does not worry at all about the business impact that the work that the team is doing is having.
Yes.
And what you just said, I think, also is a call for us as Scrum Masters to concentrate some of our time and energy on understanding what is the value of this product, the product we are developing or service we are developing, for the company that employs us, whether as a consultant or as an employee, right? Because that is what we are there to do. We are there to help the company succeed by creating a better environment in the team, by helping the teams be more productive, by helping them become more agile.
Exactly. And I think in hindsight, what would help me there is if I did not focus purely on one team, maybe I had to spread my services to other teams as well, even though I knew that maybe the service to one team would a little bit decrease. But I tried to focus the Scrum value focus, and this time it did not work out that well.
Yeah, and one of the things for me that kind of explains potentially what happened to you. And by the way, I have seen that happen to many Scrum Masters. It's not the first company that I work with that at some point just decides, hey, we don't need Scrum Masters, right? And it's not because the Scrum Masters have done a good job, which is, we'll talk about that on Thursday. It's exactly the opposite. It's because they have done a lousy job at showing the value that they bring to the company.
Yes.
They might have done a great job at showing the value they bring to the team, but it's not the team only that matters. It's how the stakeholders perceive the work. It's how the business impact that comes out of that team. It's how the product managers or product owners talk about the role of the Scrum Master. It's not only the team having good collaboration and using agile practices. It really is about having a business impact.
That's so true.
Thank you for sharing that story, Simon.
You're welcome.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.